The meeting to order with a roll call. This is the Community Consolidated School District 46 Board of Education meeting Wednesday evening, December 11th, 2024, beginning at 6 p.m. here at Frederick School. Roll call.
Mack.
Here.
Braden.
Here.
Nash.
Here.
Albert.
Here.
LaCroix.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Weedman. Absent.
Okay, we have quorum. Please join me for the pledge. Thank you. I need a motion to approve this evening's agenda, please.
I'll move. I'll second.
Okay.
Miller.
Aye.
Mack.
Aye.
Albert.
Aye.
Braden.
Aye.
LaCroix.
Aye.
And Nash.
Aye.
Okay. Do we have any public comments signed up down there? Nope. Okay. That moves us right along to the board reports. I can start down with you, Mrs. Miller, this time, if you like.
Just a quick one. If you haven't seen the email from the library, they're doing a website survey. It took me about less than 10 minutes to do. So I want to encourage that just to help the library, but also the process was kind of cool because it was just this card sorting activity that we did online. So if you haven't done it, it was worth doing. And I also thought it'd be good to help them. So thank you. That's it.
Okay, Mrs. Braden.
No report tonight, thanks.
Mrs. Nash.
No report.
Mr. LaCroix. Mrs. Albert.
And none from me.
Okay, well, I have something. So we're going to put that up on the screen there if we can. Just a quick update from CCSD this week. So we're going to go down to slide 21 if we can, or if that shows up on the PDF. Oh, I think we missed it, yeah. Keep going back. Right there. Okay. And Dr. Glickman, you can certainly jump in and help me because you serve on the executive board discussion for this. And so the part of the meeting this evening, it was a lengthier meeting this time around because we were presented as the governing board with an amended budget for fiscal year 25. And that was for a number of reasons. And as you can see here, the budget needed to adjust a construction budget that had originally been budgeted for $500,000, and outstanding expenses and costs were discovered to be along the line of $6.2 million through summer of 2025. So the leadership, the two interim superintendents, as well as the business officer, were presenting this, had conversations, of course, in the executive board. If you do, would you like to? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I know this is your report.
No, but
okay.
You're on the executive
so throughout this school year, the executive board of CCSD has been hearing from the interim CSBO at CCSD. Now there are two interim CSBOs, and what's been happening is that interim CSBO has been found quite a number of concerns with the budget. And so that's what Dr. Mack is sharing with you, because what's occurred is that the budget was severely under budgeted, for lack of a better term, in these three areas. So there was over $6 million planned for the summer of 25, but only $500,000 budgeted. We don't know why that is. The salaries were $1.6 million higher than the budgeted amount. That has to do with the fact, so when we in District 46 give you a budget, the salary portion is based on the actual employees that we have, right? And we know how much we're going to spend on our employees. That wasn't the system that the previous CSBO was using at CEDAL, and instead it was kind of an estimated number. They were taking kind of an average salary cost and plugging that in and multiplying it by the number of staff members there would be. That resulted in about $1.645 million that wasn't accounted for in that budget. Also, you've been hearing a lot from us in our school district about the amount of money we are spending on contracts for contractual employees when we can't fill a position with our own staff member. So, no surprise, CEDAL is in the same boat, right? And more so than we are because, you know, their entire staff is specialized. So they're having to fill many positions with contract agencies. None of those costs were in the budget. So that resulted in a significant change in budget. Sorry to steal all of your thunder.
You don't have to. You can keep going too if you'd like, because you were part of those larger
Okay.
conversations. So if we can advance to slide 27 and 28 and 29, because that will give us a little bit more information. Needless to say, this
Here it is.
caused
This one, yeah.
quite a bit of conversation, and so the contributing factors to the current status are listed here as part of the presentation that was given to us, and of course that Dr. Glickman had been part of earlier than that meeting. So over the past 5 years, tuition rates for member districts have been significantly lower than the true costs of programming. And so that compounded over the years. So districts were being undercharged for the CEDAL services significantly. Tuition increases because of that, they've been ranging from that 1% to 5% range, averaging about 3.5%, as we know, over the past 10 years, while inflation has been going up larger than that. So it was not keeping up with those costs. Additionally, the past few years, CEDAL had been using ESSER funds for normal operating expenses, which those are expended now. In the original 25 budget, there were line items that didn't include, as Dr. Glickman had mentioned, those salaries, that salary difference, the benefits, some of those purchased services. And again, this was all discovered by the current CSBO. The increased cost of those contracted agencies, roughly around 1.5 to 2 times the cost, was not anticipated. And then the challenging in the hiring resulted in the highest staffing levels, we've had effective recruiting that resulted in highest staffing levels since COVID, so that additional cost. Did I hit all those properly?
Yep, I think there's more information, maybe the next slide that we want to
Slide
look at.
28.
Yeah,
So what was presented before the governing board that evening caused quite a bit of discussion. There's going to be, or there's a proposed, one-time tuition rate adjustment of 15 to 17% for fiscal year 26, which was discussed at the recent steering committee and the financial planning members. A CEDAL advisory committee is being finalized and will work with the steering committee to guide those increases based on a tuition restructured model beginning in 27. So as it was presented to us, the 15 to 17%, wherever that falls, is a one-time tuition rate adjustment. Beyond that, it will normalize back down to, I think, perhaps into the 6 to 8% range.
yeah, right. So we hope. I want to just provide a little more
Please.
information. So it's hard to say the good news because there's really no good news in this story, but the good news is that as Chris Wildman has shared information with you, board, including the financial information that was shared at the last Finance Committee meeting and even the one prior to that, already had, you remember, a 15% increase in special education costs. Now, that was all of our costs, not just the CEDAL tuition, but that means that 15 to 17% tuition increase for CEDAL is already baked into the information that Chris has already given you. So as difficult as this is to see, it's something that we were already planning for, not because we specifically knew that this was exactly what was going to happen at CEDAL, we didn't, but because of the rising costs in general. So this is just all together. So that's what's going to happen in the upcoming year. After that, as Dr. Mack was saying, it's the concept is to have a very different restructuring, a very different structure of how CEDAL costs are dispersed amongst school districts. I think the thing I would want to say to you, board, is that our school district is a strong user of CEDAL. We have a lot of students that we are supporting through CEDAL. So it feels likely to me that costs will continue one way or another to go up for us. And so Stephen and I wanted to share this information with you tonight simply as information, right? That this is what's happening in CEDAL, and we will be continuing to watch it, but it certainly does affect our budget in the future. Yeah.
Was there one more slide, or was that the last one?
I think that was the last one we were gonna, oh yeah, there's one more.
No, there's this one, yes.
Yeah, want we talk about that one?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't remember talking about this one. Did they present this one? They did, yeah.
Yeah, so Heather's been talking. Actually, Dr. Lorenzo, why don't you talk about this act? Because you've been hearing from her about this a little bit.
Yes, this is just a reminder to you all because we've been talking about the new act that is something that's been advocated for a long time downstate. And finally, we've seen action, and now the act has been approved. And this shifts the tuition cost reimbursement. Currently and historically, we received reimbursement for tuition costs for public therapeutic settings at any cost beyond 4 times per capita. So if you assume our per capita about 10,000, it would be anything in a tuition beyond 40,000. And our per capita is unique to our district and changes and is adjusted. And it's about 17,000 right now. Now, the public therapeutic tuition reimbursement rate has historically been anything beyond 2 times per capita. So if you think about what we're capturing in funds in the students who attend CEDAL compared to the tuition costs, we really aren't capturing any current reimbursement funds for those tuition costs. Now, there's other financial advantages. They're closer to home, so transportation costs and those kind of things. So there's other things that contribute to the financial means of students, but they've readjusted this. So now both private therapeutic and public therapeutic settings are reimbursed at the same rate. So we should be able to capture more money from the public therapeutic settings. How much is still kind of unknown because, there's obviously some more spending that the state has to do. So all of those calculations have to be done.
Thank you. So we're really hoping that will offset some of these costs for us, but we'll have to wait and see what it looks like.
And just to add, just so that the board knows, the governing members who were in attendance that evening, obviously, it was an uncomfortable presentation, I think, for the leadership of CEDAL to make. And they apologized. They had a very sincere apology to bring that to the governing board. And there were a lot of questions that flowed not only just from the information that was presented, but also, how do we go about as member districts rebuilding a level of trust with our relationship with CEDAL. So there's a lot of questions around that. There's a lot of conversation that came from the member districts. One of the things that I've spoken with Dr. Glickman about, and that I'll make she's already made this suggestion to the leadership there, but I'll second it, for lack of a better word, is to my knowledge, since I've been serving on the board and several of you with me, we've never had CEDAL actually visit our board meeting and actually talk to us about the services or do a presentation or come in and give us a sense of what's going on. It's always me, going to the meetings and coming back and reporting to you whatever I have. So we're hoping that might be one step forward, and then several other suggestions in terms of reporting and getting to the governing board. And it's hard because the governing board only meets 4 times a year. So the executive board that Dr. Glickman serves on is like us, monthly, right? And then we get those quarterly reports. And so when we have those, it's a little bit more of a big information dump than it is the more concise ones that we have at regular board meetings. So that's where we landed, and we wanted to make sure that you were aware of that as we go into the new year. But they're going to be working hard to right that ship.
So thanks for the heads up, the overview. It sounds like, according to Dr. Glickman, we have been preparing for rising costs, and so Mr. Wildman had already been kind of preparing for that. Do we have an idea as to what our net impact is going to be, though?
Well, for next year, yes. For next year, yes, because it's already been built into the financials he's already given the board. So I think there are two factors that we don't know. One is what will be the impact of this public act. The impact will be positive for us, right? So the bad news that we've already looked at regarding our budget for next year hopefully will not be as negative because of this public act. So that's the first thing we don't know. The second thing we don't know is what decisions will be made regarding the structure of tuition in coming years and how that will impact us. And we very flat do not know the answer to that question yet.
Okay. Is there a timetable on when we could expect to see forecast around that?
So the committee hasn't even started meeting yet to start talking about the restructuring. That'll happen after the first of the year. So I don't want to make promises that I have no ability to keep. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Sure.
If I may just ask a quick follow-up on that. If I did my math correctly, the budget miss that they were flashing was something on the order of $11 million. Can you put that into context as far as the size of their overall annual budget?
Oh, gosh.
We can get that information.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Good
actually, we
question.
have that information. So let us take a look, and maybe we can come back to it at the end
Sure.
of the meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. So there you go. Hopefully I don't have a big update like that again. We can look through that. Yeah, okay. That brings us to the superintendent's report. I'll hand it over to Dr. Glickman.
Well, Dr. Mack, I feel like I talked all over your report, so I want to invite you to talk all over mine if you like, just so you know. All right. I'm going to hand this over to Mrs. Gluck to talk about some really fantastic presentations that she got to see this week.
Yeah, so good evening. I'm really excited to share this information with you. So the Raising Student Achievement Conference was on Monday and Tuesday in Oak Brook. And we had 11 presenters for 5 presentations come from District 46. So super exciting. So the topics that were presented on, Amanda Larrabee and Pilar Garcia presented on translanguaging. And I attended all of these. They were all amazing presentations. Amy Schneider, Tammy Singer, and Vicki Ewan presented on showcasing successful instruction with staff taking the lead. Nikki Blackburn and Andrew Friesma presented on lesson study, and specifically in the area of math. Yvonne Schmid and Jennifer Everett presented on aligning standards in literacy instruction and really around how do we bring in students to be able to focus on areas that are exciting for them. And the last one was Leanne Salas and Stephanie Nicoletti, and they presented on instructional coaching and questioning that you can use through instructional coaching. All amazing presentations. They did an incredible job. They had put in proposals months ago for this and were accepted to present at the conference. And it was well attended by people from out of state as well as many attendees from within the state. So, and I met people from Southern Illinois. So, I mean, it was really well attended and super exciting. So just wanted to share.
We're just really proud of our staff. And then I wanted to share that it's kind of concert season around town as we are nearing the holidays and nearing winter break. Last night I had the opportunity to be right here at Frederick for a wonderful choir concert. It was outstanding. We have GMS musical this weekend, Beauty and the Beast. Actually, tomorrow night there's a 5:30 presentation of the show in case you want to come in early, but then it's also on Friday and Saturday as well. Monday, there's a GMS choir concert. Tuesday, there's a Frederick band concert. And Wednesday, there's a GMS band concert. So if you're in the mood for music, there's something to do every night. And that's it for now for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Glickman. For the consent agenda, I need a motion to approve this evening's consent agenda, which includes the personnel addendum that was sent to us earlier today.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay.
Braden,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
and Mack.
Aye. Excuse me. Okay, we have a few action items to go through this evening. To start off, I need a motion to approve the school maintenance project grant round 1 application that was discussed.
I'll move.
Okay.
I'll second.
Any further questions? Okay.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
and Albert.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Next is the motion to approve the purchase and installation of boilers and installation of chillers as was presented to us.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, questions, comments? Okay,
LaCroy,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
aye.
and Nash.
Aye.
Okay, and finally, I need a, motion passes. And finally, I need a motion to approve the student fees, early childhood tuition, and facility rental fees for school year 2025-2026 as was presented last meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any additional questions or comments? No? Okay,
Albert,
Aye.
Mack,
aye.
Braden,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
and Nash.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes. We do not have anything under our unfinished business, but we do have a new business item, which is the Student Services Opportunity Review, and I will hand that over to Dr. Lorenzo and Mrs. Gluck.
Give me a remote. I'm just nervous about the remote situation. Hi, good evening. Amy and I are really excited to give an update for all of you on our Student Services Opportunity Review update. It's been a relatively short period of time since we've seen received the findings from the company, but we've made some steps and some gains, and we're going to highlight some more work to do. Dr. Diaz isn't here tonight, so Amy's going to speak to her portion of the Opportunities Review. So we want to highlight the mission for the school district, and we really want to emphasize that this opportunity review and the work that we do really encompasses all three of these elements in the mission, which includes empowering learners and then creating equity in opportunities and services for students, and then cultivating community, because these students, our students, are all of our students. Good job, good timing. We have a number of values that we really think connect very closely to the work that we do in all of our teaching and learning student services arena, but we really want to highlight that we believe achievement is individual and is realized through collaboration with others, and that really closely connects to the elements and the findings in this opportunity review. So a little bit of a review. In June of 2023, which seems so long ago, but it was just a little over a year ago, we started the actual opportunity review, and that was conducted through November of 23, and it included data analysis, which is that quantitative portion, looking at assessment, analyzing various demographics and trending data and other quantitative district data that they were requesting and pulling from our resources or our sources. And then also qualitative portions were conducted, which included focus groups with a whole variety of stakeholders of our school district and community, roles and representatives that included educators, parents and leadership and non-certified personnel and alike. So, and also some one-to-one interviews with building leaders and district leaders. There was a schedule sharing opportunity and then a survey that was embedded in the survey, schedule sharing survey that went out that week. And then following that review portion, in January 24, we received the findings from that, and that was shared with a general guiding coalition made up of district leaders and some union representation. And you might remember we had some building issues, so we had to kind of smudge the timeline out a little bit more, but we were able to convene in February to continue a planning workshop and get the wheels moving on the action planning from the findings of this review. And then in April of 24, you might remember that the DM group came to our board meeting and presented on those findings, and that information was then shared with the CCSD 46 community. And then in May and June, we met more intensely with the leadership team and really dug into some of those elements and started to make some more decisions and have conversations around that together. And then really in summer of 24, a lot of the actual forethought and planning and how we approached this school year and where we were going to evolve and grow started to happen. And here we are. The opportunity review identified 4 really nice strengths that we have going on in our district. And I just want to highlight that there's a lot of collaboration going on in this district. Is there obviously room to grow? Yes, who doesn't? However, there is strong emphasis on the staff's ability to lean on each other and dialogue and collaborate together to provide quality services for students. Additionally, we've been working with a company called Surpass, and formerly known as Chancelite, and they've been really paramount in being on the ground support with some of our most significant needs and supporting teachers through some problem-solving seasons that are necessary. We have a variety of elementary reading interventions that were highlighted through this, and staff reported that they were quality, and students' access to them in intervention blocks was definitely a strength to the district. And lastly, we have a couple programs that we have in our district that CEDAW would likely label as a sector program, but we have our own version of 2 of their programs in our district, and there's been a lot of nice feedback regarding the quality of the programming that we have in our district. And then they identified 5 opportunities for us, and this is kind of where the exciting work gets started. It's really important, as you all know, in a system that is ever changing, students' needs are evolving, that we are responsive to that, and we can never really stay stale because student needs and what we have in front of us requires us to be responsive. So Linda and I and Amy and our ML department are really approaching this with a growth mindset and really excited about this. When we talk about this being an opportunity review, we really believe that there is opportunity in these findings. So we're going to highlight the opportunities and then some of our progress. So opportunity 1 really is specific to communication and how that pathway works and clarity around that with our staff and our in our community. there was a lot of changing of communication through the pandemic, and we really were streamlining that. But now that we're kind of back to operation as normal, it's really important, and it was highlighted through this opportunity, that we really recreate some consistent means that are thorough and provide a lot of clarity, especially with critical information. And then there were a couple roles that were identified as our staff really wanting some clarity on what their role is and what it is not, and where their boundaries start and end. So we wanted to lean into that as well, and connect that to other on-the-ground leaders that we have in our district. So there's some clarity around that, and I want to highlight some of that progress that we've made. Specific to communication, we started this year reframing how information was going to come and how staff can find information. As you know, our teaching and learning department, maybe you don't know, gives, we all inform. So our tech department, our ML department, the student services department, as well as all of teaching and learning, we have been working together to provide a common format for communication to come out. And we have found that it's been really successful. However, we've been receiving feedback that there needed to be some adjustment. So we've been working on revising the frequency, kind of its visual function, and really trying to work through making sure it's real clear on what kind of topics are embedded in that. So that's work that we're continuing to do. So again, we talk about growth mindset. It's really important to continue to be responsive to the feedback that we're hearing. So I wanted to mention that. And then we also want to highlight that email will come directly from the student services. And that's Linda, that's me, that is our secretarial staff when necessary, on really timely, high-level, important priority topics that need to come through us. So that is still also happening. And then I found personally the staff shared drive and the drive system to be a little clunkier in people being able to access everything we needed. So I worked with Leslie this summer to get all of our templates and everything that our staff in the department, as well as in our educational system, as far as internal staff, we worked in moving all of those documents to an intranet. So all of that stuff's housed there, and here is a visual example of the links for those. If you notice, they are actual links, so when they are updated or elements are changed, those are actually actual live links. And anytime a document is amended, we will be, and we have here and there been making sure that we're informing that a document has changed. For example, if we changed our release of information that parents would sign to give us consent to share student information, we want to make sure that that's updated on the intranet, as well as identified so staff know that they're going and utilizing the correct form. So there's that. And then additionally, in Opportunity 1, there've been some shifts in our leadership roles. We added, as you have approved in a couple years ago, our special ed facilitators. And we've been utilizing different assistant principals and our special ed facilitators as LEA representatives in different IEP meetings, as well as shifting how psychologists function in that relationship to IEP meetings and decision-making for students. So we wanted to, so we've learned that there was a desire to clarify those roles. And I wanted to share that we've been working to do that and really define that even with ourselves, what's working, what's not, and communicate that out. And we also created a reference document that was created to detail what is each of their specific roles and responsibilities, and kind of what sort of things do they share. So both of those things have been created. The second opportunity was really about creating consistency across our student services. And I say that reluctantly because it's important to know that we want to create consistency while also deconstructing consistency. We want students to have decisions that are very individualized and specific. So we want to get away from rinse and repeat decision making at all costs, but we also want to create consistency by way of predictability for our programming. And understanding that we have equitable opportunities for students across our district. And then also really strengthening those transition years from early childhood to all the kindergarten buildings. We have 5 that they then spread out to. And then you have 4 K4 buildings that then feed into 5, 6, and then 7, 8. So there's a lot of opportunity for transitions, and we want to make sure that we're strengthening those procedures so there's continuity in programming and opportunities that make sense. And that has been something that we kind of, no, it's okay, that we've kind of known for a little while, that transitions are a harder area to work through, but it's important to really affirm that that voice also came out through this opportunity review, which is exciting because now we have a lot of stakeholders really targeting that work and doing that together. So more to come there. In regards to progress for opportunity number 2, we've really worked to create this LEA representative role. A local education agency is that of the school board. We are the governing body to provide a free and appropriate public education. And the LEA rep is a person who serves as someone who can give authority to decisions that an IEP team needs to make at an IEP meeting on behalf of the school district. So that authority is really important to have at an IEP meeting because I'm sure there was some case law several years ago where IEPs utilized the excuse that we can't make that decision, Amy's not here for that, as a reason to not make a decision during an IEP meeting, and that's just not legally sound. So the law has required this role to be a part of every IEP meeting. So we've worked to really define who's serving in that, and then provide training for those professionals, because there's a lot of legal nuance that's really important, and it takes time. You kind of build your repertoire as you experience more opportunities and experiences. So we had a full day training with our LEA reps. And then we meet with the special ed facilitators every other week and the assistant principals of Park, Frederick, and Middle School at least once a month. Excuse me. So we also have been working with our student service or our special education teachers on late starts. This started last year, which was actually a nice marriage to this opportunity because we were able to utilize what we learned from this opportunity and the work that we started and continue that work, but do it better and do it in a more robust way. So our late starts this year, and we were lucky enough to be able to secure even more, which is really excited, is our work in specially designed instruction. What is special education and what is an accommodation? What is quality differentiation and universal design? So really defining that and leveraging opportunities to do more, to have more powerful conversations with our grade level teams and as decision makers of students. So that also includes collaboration meetings. So Linda and I have been on the go. We've been meeting with special ed teachers with at least one IEP meeting and a review that they've been preparing for. So we can just dialogue about what they know about a student and what kind of decisions that they're trying to make. And we really specify that they're the ones legally making that decision with their team, but we certainly want to have conversations that connect to the specially designed instruction conversations we've been having through our professional development. So it's creating that cohesive practice because 3 or 4 to 5 late starts and then hoping it sticks isn't really going to create the movement and growth that we're hoping for. So we've really been working to embed our time more regularly in those conversations. We are also continuing to work in our vertical articulation. Minimally each May, we guarantee time for our special ed teachers and related services alike to be able to meet and talk about students as they transition and prepare that programmatically, but also at transition IEP meetings, we invite representatives. And so continuing that work so we can continue to increase our effective transitions between each of those grade levels. And then lastly, our professional learning community, we've been working with our special ed facilitators to really build this guiding coalition so they can help work with their building teams to facilitate our special ed teachers' role in their professional learning communities so they can not only receive value but then provide value because their expertise is pretty phenomenal, and we want to make sure that they are feeling confident in doing that work. So I'm going to roll over to Amy for opportunity 3.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about this opportunity 3, which is about developing staff skill in order to support our multilingual learners. So you'll notice there's 3 things that were listed underneath that opportunity. The first is just building district-wide knowledge. So how are we engaging staff in that collective and ongoing learning to best support our students within our multilingual population? As we know, our multilingual population has been growing, and so we need to continue to provide support for that, for our staff to be able to support students in their classrooms. It's also about providing PD opportunities to support and think about what does tailoring instruction look like. So just as Heather was talking about related to individualized instruction for our students with IEPs, it's similar kind of thinking, right? How are we continuing to also identify some of those skills that our staff need to be able to provide that instruction to our students? And then also building our instructional coach capacity. So how can our instructional coaches also be trained in best practices related to linguistically responsive teaching to be able to then provide support for our teachers through their role. So some of the things that we have been doing, and you're going to hear more about this planning and design team in February, I believe. But we have a multilingual and bilingual programming planning and design team working right now, and the purpose of that PDT is to really look at our program and determine, are we best supporting our students? And so as a result of that, it will likely lead to further professional development and professional learning for our staff, depending on what the recommendations of that continue to be. We're also providing opportunities for collaboration between our general educators and our multilingual educators to be able to have some conversations in support of students that they're servicing together within the same team. So there's been some of that collaboration happening. And then our instructional coaches, which you're going to hear about in opportunity 4 also, are supporting staff through the use of coaching cycles, and those are really focused on best practices and instruction. And so if we're talking about best practice and instruction, that will also support our students who are multilingual. So that's opportunity 3. Opportunity 4 is looking at an instructional coach model and defining an instructional coach model. So what this really asked us to do was just to look at the priorities of our instructional coaches, how they are using their time, and ensure that their time is truly used to be able to support and coach teachers, which will ultimately impact our student learning within our classrooms. And so it asked us to continue to refine a coaching model, so I'm going to talk about that in a second and set some guidelines, and then also just to refine those expectations. What is the frequency that our coaches are working with our teachers? Is there a process for that? What does that all look like? So we've been doing a lot related to that. This beginning of the school year, we did a coaching relaunch, and what that was we touched on it briefly during our opening day presentation, but then later in August, it was the focus of a staff meeting, and really the conversation at those staff meetings, their purpose of those conversations is what coaching is and what coaching is not. And so we have our coaches are regularly engaging in instructional coaching cycles Those cycles, depending on the needs of the staff that they're working with or the requests from the staff that they're working with, are focused on instructional strategies, on assessment, on planning. It really depends on the individual teacher or team that is asking to work with the coach. In addition to that, last year we actually started, and we're continuing this year, a coaching academy for our coaches. So we have someone that comes in and is working with our coaches on developing their skill set specifically related to coaching cycles, inquiry, questioning, all the types of things that we want for our coaches to really, truly, deeply understand. They're also looking at best practices in instruction and how can they use that to be able to help to develop their own coaching repertoire. So we actually have one tomorrow. So really exciting work that they are engaging in, and we're a year and a half in. So they've all shared that that's really helpful for them and building their skill set. And then in addition to that, we will have some additional staff meeting time during this school year to support the use of coaching cycles. And I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Lorenzo.
Our last, definitely shorter, our last opportunity that has been identified is clarifying the role of program assistants. As you likely know, we have a variety of paraprofessionals across our district with different roles and responsibilities, but sometimes those things can be unclear. There could be some overlaps, and we learned that there was a request out of this opportunity review to really redefine that and provide some clarity around not only what are their roles and responsibilities, but what does that reporting structure look like. And there was also a lot of information about the desire for more quality and regular professional development for our program assistants, which I know that Amy has been working hard with them to continue to provide and enhance. So in regards to progress for this area, this has not been an area where we've been able to put in a ton of work at this time. I mean, as you can see, we've done a ton of work, but there's so much more to do. And we know that an opportunity review like this evolves, and we want to keep the action plan rolling and moving and being responsive to what we learn along the way as well. So this is an area where we need to put a little bit more work into in the future. But thus far, we have been in conversation in collaboration with the PSRP union to provide regular professional development this year. And those have been coming through during late starts. And some of the topics highlighted have been about trauma-informed practices and being responsive to that, fostering successful paraprofessional teacher relationships, and then supporting students through grief and loss. And more to come. So, as I said, continuous improvement and growth mindset is so important here, and we've come a long way, but there is so much more to do. I want to highlight some things that we have on our docket for the next step. So we want to continuously evaluate our communication pathways to ensure that they're thorough and clear. And you kind of have to try it and then adjust and hear feedback and change, and that's really important. And that's how we know. And number two, we want to continue our collaboration with our special ed team members so we can continue to develop our IEPs and apply what we're doing in our late starts to the actual decisions that they're making on a regular basis. And that also includes continued articulation for vertical articulation for transitions, and really in hopes of creating more and more consistency in programmatic decisions across the district. We definitely intend on digging deeper into the opportunity number 5 regarding program assistant roles and their responsibilities, and real specifically providing more clarity and then figuring out what those systemic reporting structures are and what they should look like, so we can be more effective in our utilization and all of our system operations with their partnership. And then lastly, we want to continue our professional development. That's going to continue to be planned for staff focused in instructional strategies to support students who are multilingual. There is a PDT happening right now, and they're looking at a whole lot of things. But aside from that, it is really exciting to see that teachers not only are recognizing that the diverse needs in their classrooms are growing, but they want to be responsive to that and be able to provide effective instruction. And we want to be able to target that and provide that instructional support for them. And Amy and I say all the time, good instruction is good instruction for all. So we really think that's going to be a benefit to everyone. And that's more work to do. We thank you for your time and patience and listen to this opportunity review update. Any questions?
Thanks for the overview. I have two questions. The first question that I have, well, more so a comment. I'm excited about Opportunity 5 with the program assistance. I don't have any stats or hard numbers in front of me with regards to turnover. I'm sure Dr. Wolk could throw something at me. But when we're looking at, like staffing updates and such, that seems like it's a role that has a lot of churn, and I think the work that you guys are going to do will help to, solve for some of that, so we can ideally have, higher retention rates and things like that with our program assistants. So thank you for that ongoing due diligence in that space. And then my question was with regards to opportunity number 2. So as part of like that desk side coaching development that you're doing, like, are you seeing the return, the reward with the expectation of seeing that differentiation while maintaining consistency?
Yes. Part of our PD together has been really talking about what is a specially designed instruction minute. We've been clarifying that actual instruction is a service, but being in a room is not, right? And we wanted to make sure that we're having conversations about what is a student's need, what identify goals are you wanting to work on, and what does that instruction look like for that student to meet that goal? What are you going to be doing? And really talking in that space. And then where's the best place to do that? Is that in the classroom with the curriculum? Is that pulled out? And then you can really think about, well, how often do I really need to do that with a student each week? So it's creating this opportunity to have dialogue so they can be more intentional when they're making those decisions. So we are seeing a connection to those late starts in that dialogue and practice. And because of this pathway or vehicle, we're now having connectivity when they're actually doing that work. It's kind of like going to a conference and it's wonderful, but if you don't go use it, it's kind of gone. We recognize that that's the same thing when you just limit yourselves to late starts. So building in the capacity to go around and collaborate has really created that cohesion when they're making decisions. We have seen that. And it's really kind of clicking, really good dialogues happening. It's exciting to see that work start to come together. You're welcome.
Thank you for the update as well. Mrs. Nash mentioned one metric that we could look at to say, what's the impact of the work that you're doing, which would be retention related to that Opportunity 5. And I know you talked about some of those interim metrics of, hey, we know we have the communication right when the people getting the communication tell us that it's working for them. So that's great. I'm wondering, are there other outcome metrics that you're looking at from the student side, from the staff side, that you're keeping an eye on longer term to say, if we implement these 5 opportunity areas well, what's going to be better for students, what's going to be better for staff?
Yeah, there's a lot of layers to those kind of metrics because they do take time. Because not only do you have to change your decisions, but you have to put it into practice. And right now, our viable sources are the formative and summative information that we're gathering through our instruction. We're also looking at the rate that students are actually meeting their annual goals and targets. But also, we're looking at special education performance as a whole, looking at our MAP data and IAR, I know that that has been a kind of a moving target over the several years. So that does have its impact. But yeah, we're looking at that, and we want to make sure that we're continuing to see growth and that it's reasonable and appropriate growth that affirms that what we're doing in practice is the right thing. Did I miss something that you want to speak to?
I can speak to all the PD kinds of things, and what we're looking at when we're thinking about coaching or professional development is we're looking at then the utilization of the strategies that we're asking to be used, and or what is the impact we're seeing in our students from what our staff are learning. So we'll be able to see the impact in some of that through some of the student learning as well.
Thank you for that. That was really well done. I have a question as it relates to, you guys talked about the need to clarify roles and responsibilities in the delivery of special education services. Can you give me an example of a task or a piece of workflow in which it might not be clear who's responsible for delivering the task or the workflow? As someone who's not, familiar with a classroom or an education setting, I'm having trouble conceptualizing why it wouldn't be clear who does what.
Yeah, and I think that's because this isn't really specific to just special education program assistants. We have kindergarten assistants, we have reading assistants, bilingual assistants, ML assistants. Am I missing any? Reading assistants. So we have different various roles, and there can be a lot of overlap. A lot of students don't fall in one kind of bucket, and they fall in different categories and supports. And as we've continued to add to different staffing models through the years, when we went to full day, we added kindergarten assistants. And then when we expanded different programming, we then made sure we had to lean into that programming and add support personnel for that. So it's not just student services as far as special education program assistance, it's all program assistants, and making sure that there's some better clarity around that. But also the needs of our students are increasing in various ways or growing in more dynamic ways, which is requiring a lot more high level content knowledge and support and being responsive. You'll see those topics that we listed with trauma-informed practices and things like that. It's not just by way of providing, reading support or pulling kids out and reading a test aloud. There's a lot more skill that needs to go into supporting some of these newer needs that we're seeing, not just here, but nationally. So there's some clarity around that, like how do we define that and who's doing what, and then how can we then pair that with professional development so that people are equipped to do those things that we're asking them to do.
So my question's about the articulation, the vertical articulation, and I think I'm clear that there's articulation from pre-K through 8th grade. I'm just wondering, is there a plan or is there something in place already that follows the child to high school?
Yes,
Can you talk
good
about that?
question. Right now, all 8th grade IEP meetings invite a high school representative to come. They offer a variety of opportunities to visit and see programming, and then there's some more connection between professional teachers and high school leaders, like department leaders and psychologists and alike. And so those kind of conversations are happening, but that representation at that meeting is really important, and they've been an incredible participant in that process because they really do engage in that dialogue. So they're making really strong programmatic decisions because it does look very different. Everything can look different. Course selection, I mean, you're really looking at a whole lot of different things as you're preparing our 8th graders who are now writing transition plans for adulthood. And that's a whole nother conversation that we're having, and they're really powerful in that dialogue. So, yeah, absolutely.
Can you speak to that coaching academy? That is one thing that really struck me as fascinating. What does that framework look like? And what do the outcomes, what is the impact of that coaching academy? I think instructional coaching, at least in my world, is not often a resource that is tapped enough. And I'm curious as to what that framework looks like both with respect to this district and for kind of my own edification on what that model looks like and what that impact would have.
Yeah, so we have a consultant that's coming in to work with us. She's coming in, I don't want to misspeak, I think 5 times this school year. Part of what they're doing is it's a lot of learning together, but then as they're learning, they're having conversations, they're using a lot of different books and resources, so they might have to do some professional practice. So once they're focusing on a specific skill, so for example, when they have been identifying how they were utilizing their time in order to, because that was one of those things that came out of the opportunity review too, right? So how are they utilizing their time to support teachers? They were able to then say, okay, what kinds of tweaks can I make to my own schedule to do that? They're really clearly defining what an instructional coaching cycle is and what it isn't. So how do we set goals? What is the length of an instructional coaching cycle? What are some types of things that we can focus on with staff? They spend some time talking about entry points, and what that means is really thinking about if there are staff, if there are some buildings that staff aren't necessarily, kind of like you just said, tapping into their coaches, right? They're not reaching out. What are some entry points for our coaches to be able to support staff in a way that's super collaborative and respectful, and what are some areas and ways that might be successful within the building. So they, as we've been focusing on different areas of a coaching cycle, they'll then practice different parts of it in between sessions and then bring it back and reflect on it. So there's a lot of actual hands-on work of what are we going to do. They do some role playing of let's have a scenario and then let's practice here with each other before we go practice with a teacher in our building. So it's some really deep work to be able to learn what are some good strategies that instructional coaches should be using. Mm-hmm.
Thanks for the presentation tonight. I just have one question about, so the mention of the increasing needs of students and the needs and professional development of some of the support staff. Do you foresee a change in what the baseline, what the PSRP staff are coming in with? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I'm understanding your question. Maybe more in terms of, are they coming in equipped and ready to engage in the professional responsibilities that they're supposed to, is what I'm understanding you to ask.
I think I'm wondering too about the cost of that down the line. So
I think the answer is we get a variety. We have some highly qualified paraprofessionals who were teachers or psychologists. We had one who was a physical therapist and whatever, really just want to take a step back and serve in the role of a program assistant. So you have plenty of professionals with a ton of experience. We have highly qualified, highly educated professionals from other countries who are newcomers, and it's starting work for them. We have people who come in more entry level and really need some training. And when we have our leaders that are interviewing candidates, we're not only looking for interest, but we're also looking for a quality match. We certainly want to try our best to provide or to match the professional with what they're asked to do, and try our best to not set professionals up for failure. But that does also mean that a lot of professional development's important for everyone, because you're right, the student needs are definitely diversifying in all ways, and it's requiring a really strong elevated skill set, and that is something that I know that we're working to continue to provide some more support so all of our professionals in this district feel more efficacy with what's in front of them right now. So yeah, there's effects to that long term and costs to that long term, but the work to do is to provide that support and training so people feel like they can do that well and then are effective in their work.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Okay, that brings us to topics for future agenda items.
Yes, January 15th is our next board meeting, so let's just pause on that. This is indeed our last board meeting of 2024 board, so congratulations for closing out 2024. So January 15th, Amy Gluck will bring us a student achievement growth and, student academic growth and achievement data review. So we'll be looking at some data. I believe January 15th is board when you wanted to share out your learnings from III, correct? Okay, I do want to know, board, how you want that reflected on the board agenda. Is that an agenda item? Is it just something you're going to do through your board reports? What would you like?
We've traditionally done it, I think, just as our board reports.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's what we'll plan on. But speaking of III, a number of us were there, and many of those there were at a keynote where Vision 2030 was discussed, presented actually. So you may remember Vision 2020. So now we're on to Vision 2030. And I'm wondering, board, if you might have been receiving emails from IASB about this topic recently. Okay, so I have, not from IASB, I've been getting it from my own organization, from IASA. And the reason I bring it up is that school boards are being encouraged to consider a resolution regarding Vision 2030. So my question to you is, would you be interested in me preparing that resolution for your discussion at the January 15th meeting? As per our typical protocols, it wouldn't be for an action item at that time for discussion. And so while you're thinking about that, obviously not doing a full presentation at this moment, but I did pull up a little bit of language from the resolution so that you can have a little appetite as to what we're talking about. So this Vision 2030 has 3 priorities. And so I'm going to just read for you the 3 whereases that are about those priorities so that it gives you an idea of what we're talking about. The first one says, whereas future-focused learning, so future-focused learning is one of the priorities, should address promoting future-driven skills that allow for more college and career exploration, enhancing student safety and well-being, attracting and retaining a high-quality and diverse educator pipeline, and promoting curriculum and instruction flexibility to meet the unique needs of local communities. And 2, the second one is shared accountability, whereas shared accountability should address reforming the Illinois assessment system to be a timely and useful measure of student proficiency and growth over time. So the point here is we're not just looking anymore at proficiency, but also growth, student growth. Reforming the current accountability system to provide local flexibility for identifying indicators that create a more holistic view of student success, and reforming the mandate process to ensure implementation procedures that promote flexibility and local decision-making. And the third priority is predictable funding. I'll say that one again. Predictable funding. Whereas predictable funding should address protecting the integrity and funding of the evidence-based funding formula, strengthening public education through pension reforms, and establishing equitable funding sources for capital and safety needs. So I'm not in any way asking you, board, if you want to adopt that resolution. I just want to know if you want to discuss it at the next meeting. Yes, 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 yes. Okay. I know that was a long place to get there, but I thought it was worth it. Hold on. I just lost my list. Okay. So January 15th will be the data review and Vision 2030 resolution discussion. January 29th, perhaps we'll be bringing Vision 2030 back for a adoption, if that's what you want to do. WOLD will be coming. Our partners, some partners from WOLD will be coming to do a long-range financial plan update for you. and we'll have a media center update at the same time. So that's our upcoming revisions to our media center. So we're going to share information about that. February 12th, we will have park students coming again. Board, if you were really paying attention, you might know we were going to originally do that on January 29th. We've revised it to February 12th. Mrs. Gluck is potentially bringing us a recommendation for a new math resource on February 12th. She's thinking we'll be ready with it. If we should be ready. If not, it might be the following board meeting, but probably February 12th. And we're going to have some staff present on February 12th about the Evolve program. That's a program we've been using with upper grade students that's helping them develop a whole lot of social and emotional skills. So we're excited to be presenting that information to you. So that's February 12th. The 26th, our GMS students are coming back. Then we also plan to have another recommendation from another PDT. So we think February 12th will be the math PDT, and we believe we'll have a recommendation from our multilingual PDT coming on February 26th. So that brings us through the end of hopefully the coldest part of the year. Okay, and before I close out, I did want to go back to your question, Jason. I know I have reviewed Heather and Amy's report several times, so I took that opportunity to do math for a little bit to answer your question. Thank you very much, Heather, for providing me with the document that I could use with the CEDAW budget. So here's what I want to share about that. First of all, the change in the CEDAW revised budget is an addition of $12.3 million. So $12.3 million that needed to be added to the budget to cover the needs. Ultimately, that is a 19% increase in the budget. And there's one more piece of information I had. Oh, I was looking at, so the budget as it had originally been presented to CEDAW did not have a deficit spend in it. It had a slight non-deficit spend, but the amended budget has a $9.1 million deficit spent in it. Answer your questions? Okay, you're welcome. All right, so that brings us, I think, to the end.
Okay, do we have any public comments signed up on the end there? No, okay. All right, we do have a closed session this evening, so I need to read the topics for the closed session and then I'll ask for a motion. We are going to enter into closed session in accordance with Public Act 5, Illinois CS 120/2C1, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity, and in accordance with Public Act 5, Illinois CS 120/2C2, collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees. I need a motion to enter into closed session. We do not anticipate any new business outside of closed session, so we will be adjourning directly from the closed session at the end of that meeting.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay?
LaCroix,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
and Braden.
Aye.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a wonderful holiday and winter season.